The reflection in the mirror wasn't mine, even though it wore my face. I pressed my palm against the cool glass of the cafe window, watching as my twin sister Maren laughed at something Dashiell had said. Her fingers, my fingers, brushed against his forearm with casual touch. She wore my favorite sundress, the yellow one with tiny white flowers that Dashiell had once said made my eyes shine like amber in sunlight. Her hair was styled exactly as I always wore mine, loose waves falling just past her shoulders. 3 months ago, I was the one sitting across from Dashiell at our favorite cafe. I was the one wearing that ring on my finger. I was the one planning a future with the man who'd promised to love me forever. Now I was a ghost, watching my own life play out through glass. "Ma'am, are you going to order something?" The barista's voice startled me from my trance. "Just black coffee," I muttered, reaching for my wallet with trembling hands. The barista glanced past me to the window, then back to my face with a flicker of confusion. I knew what she was seeing, identical faces, one inside, one outside. But she wouldn't understand the abyss of difference between us. No one did. "Twins, huh?" she said, handing me my change. "That must be fun." I didn't answer. Fun wasn't the word for what Maren had done. Calculated, meticulous, devastating. Those were better descriptors for the systematic way she had stolen my identity, my fiancé, and my entire existence, leaving me with nothing but the clothes on my back and a burning rage that kept me warm at night. I took my coffee to a corner table where I could watch them without being seen. Dashiell looked happy, completely oblivious to the fact that the woman across from him wasn't the one he'd proposed to 6 months ago. Wasn't the woman he'd been with for 3 years. My sister had perfected her performance down to the smallest details, the way I tucked my hair behind my ear when I was listening intently, the slight tilt of my head when I was amused but trying not to show it. She'd studied me for years, waiting for the perfect moment to replace me. And I had to admit, with bitter admiration, that she'd executed her plan flawlessly. I pulled out my phone and reviewed the evidence I'd compiled over the past month. Photos of my documents found in her apartment. Screenshots of emails where she'd practiced mimicking my writing style. Bank statements showing how she'd systematically drained my accounts after reporting my cards stolen and having new ones issued. The medical records she'd somehow altered, using her position at the hospital. Everything was in place. Today wasn't just reconnaissance, it was the day I reclaimed what was mine. I watched as Dashiell paid their bill. They stood together, and my heart clenched as he wrapped his arm around her waist, my waist, with the casual confidence of a man who believed he knew exactly who he was touching. They turned toward the door, and I slid deeper into the shadows of my corner. As they passed, I caught a fragment of their conversation. "Still don't understand why you won't talk about what happened with your sister," Dashiell was saying, his brow furrowed with concern. "Some betrayals can't be forgiven, Dashiell," Maren replied in my voice, with my intonation. "She's not the person you thought you knew. Trust me on this." The irony nearly made me laugh aloud. But I kept my silence as they walked past, obvious to my presence. Once they were gone, I checked my watch. I had exactly 90 minutes before phase 1 of my plan began. 90 minutes to prepare myself to destroy the perfect life my sister had stolen from me. The key still worked. Of course it did. Maren wouldn't have thought to change the locks on my apartment. In her arrogance, she believed I was gone for good, committed to the psychiatric facility where she'd managed to have me confined using forged documents and her medical connections. She hadn't counted on Dr. Brenner, who had noticed discrepancies in my paperwork and helped me gain my release after 3 hellish weeks. She hadn't anticipated that I'd spend the next 2 months meticulously documenting her deception while hiding in a dingy motel room, paid for with cash from the emergency fund I'd hidden years ago, a precaution from growing up with a pathologically envious twin. Our childhood home was quiet as I slipped inside. Dashiell would be at work by now, and Maren had a standing therapy appointment on Thursday afternoons, a session she'd originally scheduled for me, then seamlessly taken over when she took my place. The irony wasn't lost on me. My sister was so committed to becoming me that she even attended my therapy. I moved through the apartment, touching familiar objects that now felt strangely foreign. Photos of Dashiell and me lined the walls, though in the most recent ones, I could tell it was Maren beside him, wearing my smile like a mask. My fingers lingered on a framed picture from our engagement party. That was still me, eyes crinkled with genuine joy, leaning into Dashiell's embrace with the easy comfort of true love. The day after that photo was taken, Maren had invited me for a sisterly spa weekend to celebrate my engagement. That weekend ended with me drugged, disoriented, and committed to a psychiatric facility under Maren's name while she walked away with my ID, my phone, and my life. In the bedroom, I found what I was looking for: Dashiell's laptop. He never changed his password, always the name of his childhood dog followed by his mother's birthday. I logged in easily and began to download the files I needed: our financial records, emails between him and me from the past 3 months, and most importantly, access to the security system he'd installed last year. As I waited for the downloads to complete, I opened his bedside drawer. Among the usual clutter was a small velvet box I didn't recognize. Inside was a delicate diamond bracelet with a small card: "To my Freya, for our anniversary. Forever yours, D." My anniversary with Dashiell was last week. I'd spent it alone in my motel room, watching the rain and planning my return. Meanwhile, my sister had been here, accepting gifts meant for me, responding to my name, sleeping in my bed with the man I loved. I snapped the box shut and returned it exactly as I'd found it. The files finished downloading, and I pocketed the USB drive, then carefully erased my digital footprints. As I prepared to leave, my attention was caught by a framed photo on the dresser, one I didn't recognize. It showed Dashiell and me at what appeared to be his parents' lake house, dated just 2 weeks ago. His family had always loved me, embraced me as one of their own. Did they not notice the difference? Or had Maren's performance been so convincing that even the people who had known me for years couldn't tell I'd been replaced? The thought sent a chill through me that quickly burned away into fresh anger. I replaced the photo and left as quietly as I'd come, the USB drive heavy in my pocket. Phase 1. Complete. "Are you absolutely certain about this?" Dr. Brenner asked, her kind eyes filled with concern as she reviewed the evidence I'd presented. "The consequences will be severe, for your sister certainly, but also potentially for you and Dashiell." "Yes, I am," I replied, my voice steady despite the hurricane of emotions inside me. "She took everything from me. My home, my fiancé, my identity. She even had me locked away, sedated and diagnosed with delusional disorder." Dr. Brenner nodded slowly. As the psychiatrist who had recognized the inconsistencies in my file and facilitated my release, she was the only person who truly understood the depth of Maren's deception. "The DNA test results confirm you are Freya Mercer, not Maren," she said, tapping the folder between us. "And the handwriting analysis clearly shows the commitment forms were forged. You have a solid case for identity theft and fraud at minimum." "I don't want to just file charges," I said. "I want my life back. My real life. And Dashiell." Her question hung in the air between us. "How do you think he'll react when he discovers he's been living with, and loving, the wrong twin for months?" I looked away, unwilling to show the pain that question inflicted. "That's why tonight has to be perfect. He needs to see us side by side. He needs to hear the truth from both of us." Dr. Brenner sighed but didn't argue further. She had already agreed to accompany me as a credible witness. As a respected psychiatrist who had treated both me and my sister at different times, her presence would lend legitimacy to my claims. "The dinner reservation is at 8, I said, checking my watch. "Maren never turns down an invitation from Dashiell's boss. They'll be there." The restaurant was one of Pittsburgh's finest, all dark wood and soft lighting, with tables spaced far enough apart to create the illusion of privacy. I had chosen it carefully, public enough that Maren wouldn't make a scene, exclusive enough that the staff would be discreet. I watched from my hidden corner as the waitress escorted Dashiell and my sister to their table, where Mr. Holbrook and his wife were already waiting. Dashiell's boss was celebrating 20 years with the architectural firm, and had invited his protégé and his lovely fiancé to join the celebration. Maren was wearing a deep burgundy dress I'd never seen before, her hair swept up in an elegant twist. She moved with confidence, her hand resting comfortably in the crook of Dashiell's arm. They looked like the perfect couple. It made me physically ill. "Are you ready?" Dr. Brenner asked softly from beside me. I nodded, smoothing down my own dress, identical to Maren's, ordered Rush from the designer label tag I'd glimpsed when following them last weekend. My hair was styled exactly like hers, my makeup a perfect mirror. Tonight, for the first time since she'd stolen my identity, we would truly be identical again. I approached their table with measured steps, Dr. Brenner close behind me. The conversation died as I came into view. Mrs. Holbrook was the first to notice, her eyes widening as she looked between me and Maren. Then Dashiell turned, his expression shifting from confusion to shock. What's happening here?" he whispered, rising halfway from his chair. Maren froze, the color draining from her face as she saw me. For a fraction of a second, her mask slipped, and I glimpsed raw panic in eyes identical to my own. Then she recovered, her features arranging themselves into a look of pained sympathy. "Dashiell," she said quietly, reaching for his hand. "I'm so sorry you have to see this. This is my sister having another episode." "No," I said, my voice strong despite the hammering of my heart. "I'm Freya Mercer, your fiancé, the woman you've loved for 3 years." I turned to the Holbrooks, who were watching with undisguised fascination. "I apologize for interrupting your celebration, but I needed witnesses. My twin sister has stolen my identity, and I can prove it." "Freya, please," Maren said, and it took all my control not to flinch at hearing her use my name. "Let me take you home. You're unwell." "I've brought documentation," I continued, ignoring her as I placed a folder on the table. "Medical records, DNA tests, and a statement from Dr. Brenner, who realized I was wrongfully committed under my sister's name." Dashiell's gaze darted between us, his expression a mixture of disbelief and dawning horror. "This is insane," he murmured. "Yes, it is," Maren agreed quickly. "My sister has struggled with delusions." "Ask her something only I would know," I interrupted, looking directly at Dashiell. "Something from our past that Maren couldn't possibly know." Dashiell swallowed hard, his eyes never leaving my face. "Where did I take you on our first date?" "Trick question," I replied without hesitation. Our actual first date was supposed to be at Riverview Park, but it rained so hard that we ended up sitting in your car for 2 hours, talking and listening to that playlist you made. "Songs for Rainy Days," you called it. The first real date was the next weekend at the Botanical Gardens. His eyes widened slightly. He turned to Maren. "Is that right?" A flash of uncertainty crossed her face. "The Botanical Gardens," she said. "You brought daisies because you remembered they were my favorite." "I'm allergic to daisies," I said quietly. "You brought sunflowers. And you were 20 minutes late because you stopped to help an elderly woman change her tire." Dashiell's gaze locked with mine, and I saw the first crack in his confusion, a glimmer of recognition. "The night I proposed," he said slowly. "What did you say to me before you said yes?" I felt tears spring to my eyes at the memory. "Ask me again when it's raining," I whispered. "Because all our best moments happened in the rain." Dashiell turned to Maren, his expression hardening. "What did you say?" Maren's composure was slipping. Her eyes darted around the table, seeking escape. I was overcome with emotion. I don't remember my exact words." "You said it's perfect," Dashiell said, his voice hollow. But Freya would never say that. She'd never think any moment was perfect because she always says perfection is overrated. He looked back at me, and the recognition in his eyes was like sunrise after the longest night. "Oh my God," he breathed. "Freya." "Yes," I said simply, relief washing through me. "This is ridiculous," Maren snapped, desperation edging her voice. "Dashiell, you've been staying with me for months. You know me." "No," he said slowly, rising from his chair to stand between us, studying our identical faces with new awareness. "I knew something was wrong. Things felt off, but I couldn't place it. You avoided my family, you changed our routines, you even—" His voice broke. "You even felt different when I held you." "I can explain everything," Maren said, reaching for him, but he stepped back. "Dr. Brenner," I said quietly, "would you please explain what you discovered?" As the psychiatrist detailed the discrepancies she'd found in my hospital admission, the forged signatures, the inconsistent medical history, the suspicious timing, I watched Maren's facade crumble completely. The Holbrooks had summoned the manager, and I could see security staff discreetly positioning themselves nearby. "I did it for us," Maren suddenly blurted, looking at Dashiell with desperate eyes. "She never deserved you. She never appreciated what she had, the perfect man, the perfect life. I loved you first. I've always loved you." Dashiell's expression hardened. "I met you once before Freya introduced us properly. At her graduation. You didn't even remember my name. Because you weren't important then," she said, her voice rising. "But I watched you with her. I saw how good you were, how devoted. I saw the life you built together. The life she took for granted." "So you took me instead?" Dashiell's voice was ice. "Like some kind of possession to be stolen?" "I became her better than she ever was." Maren was shouting now, obviously to the stunned restaurant around us. "I studied her for years. I knew I could be a better Freya than she ever was. And I was right. You were happier with me, admit it." The restaurant had gone silent, all eyes on our table. I felt a strange detachment watching my sister's meltdown, as though I were observing a film rather than my own life unraveling and reknitting before my eyes. "Security is here," Mr. Holbrook said quietly. "And I've called the police." Maren's eyes darted wildly around the room before settling on me with pure hatred. "You think this is over? You think you've won?" She laughed, a brittle, broken sound. "You have no idea what I've done in your name. The bridges I've burned. The secrets I've told. By the time you sort through the wreckage, he won't want either of us." "That's enough," Dashiell said firmly. "Whatever you've done, whatever lies you've told, they're yours, not Freya's." As security escorted my screaming sister away, I remained rooted to the spot, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had just happened. 3 months of planning, of evidence gathering, of rehearsing this confrontation, and now it was over. Maren was exposed. The truth was out. But what remained of my life was still in ruins. The rain fell in gentle sheets as Dashiell and I sat in his car outside the police station hours later. The formal charges had been filed: identity theft, fraud, false imprisonment, forgery. The detective had warned us the case would be complicated, messy, and public. Twins switching places, it was the stuff of sensational headlines and true crime podcasts. Neither of us had spoken for several minutes. The rhythmic sweep of the windshield wipers filled the silence. "I don't even know where to begin," Dashiell finally said, his voice rough with emotion. "How to apologize for not knowing, for not seeing." "She's my identical twin," I said quietly. "She had access to all my personal information, my mannerisms, my history. She's studied me her entire life, waiting for an opportunity." "But I should have known," he insisted, turning to face me. Something in me should have recognized that she wasn't you. I really looked at him for the first time since our reunion. He appeared exhausted, his face lined with stress I didn't remember, his eyes haunted with a new wariness. This ordeal had changed him too. Did you? I asked softly. Did some part of you sense the difference? He was quiet for a long moment, rain drumming on the roof above us. Yes, he finally admitted. There were moments when something felt wrong. The way she'd respond to certain things. How she'd avoid talking about shared memories. Little inconsistencies that I attributed to stress or change. He ran a hand through his hair. I thought you were pulling away from me, and I was trying to give you space. The irony was bitter. While I was fighting to get back to you, what she did, it contaminated everything. Our home, our memories, even us. Dashiell nodded slowly, pain evident in every line of his face. I need to know something, he said after a moment. If you could go back and erase these last 3 months, just pick up where we left off before she took your place, would you want that? The question caught me off guard. Would I? Could I pretend this hadn't happened? Could I sleep in the bed where he'd been with my sister, thinking she was me? Could I wear the bracelet he'd given her on our anniversary? No, I said finally. I wouldn't erase it. As painful as this is, it's shown us something important. I turned to face him fully. Our relationship had a vulnerability we didn't see. A crack Maren could exploit. What do you mean? I'm saying we can't go backward. We can't pretend this didn't happen. I took a deep breath. But maybe if we both want to, we can go forward. Build something new. Something entirely ours that no one can take from us. The rain intensified, drumming against the car like 1,000 tiny heartbeats. Dashiell reached across the console and took my hand, his touch tentative, as if rediscovering the feel of my skin. Ask me again when it's raining, he murmured, echoing the words I'd said the night he proposed. Despite everything, I felt a smile touch my lips. All our best moments happen in the rain, I replied softly. We sat together in silence as the storm washed over us, neither making promises nor plans, simply existing in the same space for the first time in months. The path ahead would be difficult, reclaiming legal documents, explaining to friends and family, healing from betrayal that cut to the bone of our identities. But as Dashiell's thumb traced circles on the back of my hand, a gesture that was uniquely his, that Maren could never have replicated, I felt something fragile and new taking root between us. Not the love we had before, but something that might, with time and care, grow equally strong. My sister had stolen my life, my love, my very self. But in fighting to reclaim what was mine, I discovered something unexpected. The woman who emerged from this ordeal was stronger, clearer, more defined than the one who had been taken. Some things, once stolen, can never truly be recovered. But sometimes, what grows in their place is even more impossible to take away. The end.